In this video, we're going to talk about setting a default currency for a customer. Now, before we get into it, I need to do a little bit of a backtrack on how multi-currency is used and what use cases this would be beneficial for. Firstly, there's a couple of ways to generate sales orders in Katana, basically two ways. One way is to import it through an integration. The second way is to create it manually. Now, creating a sales order through an integration means that the sales order is going to originate elsewhere. So if you have a website that sells in a foreign currency, the sales order will be imported into Katana, and it will use the currency that it's sold on since the customer bought it from a website, for example. And when it flows in, it will automatically convert whatever they paid at the current exchange rate. So in that case, you can't really do anything about it because the sale was already made. But if you want to sell your products through some general process where currency conversion is important and selling to a customer in their currency is important, then that's when this becomes quite handy. So firstly, what makes it handy is that if you want to sell in a different market and selling in the local currency of that market, you'll need to always make sure that you understand that you're selling at the correct margin in order for you to make money. If you're using out-of-date exchange rates or you're not using exchange rates at all, then you could have a serious problem with respect to how you're making money. You might be actually losing money. So Katana is always going to make sure that when you set a default currency for a customer, that anytime you generate a sales order for that customer, you'll be able to get the correct price in that customer's currency every time to make sure that you're making money at the most recent or latest exchange rate. So to do so, what I would be needing to do to set this up is I would go into my contacts list and I'll choose a client here, which I have named customer, and I'm going to change their currency from our base currency into something else. So if this customer is based in Australia, I would sell to them in Australian dollars. Now, I'm no expert. I don't know what the exchange rate is between Australian dollars and euros, which I'm tracking. So I need to figure out how best to go around that. And that's how I use Katana's automation to facilitate. Now, if this customer is buying from me, and let's say we're working with a sales order, we put in their name, customer. Right now, I'm going to make a quote as a starting point. Then you're going to get a warning that says, the selected customer is using different currency, Australian dollars, than the currently used currency which we have in Katana, euros. Would we like to change the currency of the sales order for the customer's set default currency? And the answer in this case would be yes. If you don't wish to, then of course you don't have to. But I'm going to choose change currency and convert. So this is actually just changing this for me based on the settings that I've specified for that customer. If I choose to ignore it, it'll just keep it in euros. So if that client was going to buy, let's say, that coffee table that we used as an example earlier, and we want to sell one unit, then that customer is going to have to pay 855 Australian dollars to ensure that, let me go ahead and take the tax off of it, to ensure that I'm getting the full 540 euros, which is its default sales price. So that's in the cases where this would actually make the most sense. I might be on the phone as a sales rep and say, okay, well, yeah, we sell that for 540 euros. Let me see if I can get you a price quote on that in Australian dollars. And then you would come in here and say, okay, well, this is the converted exchange rate. So $855 would be the total cost for the customer. The customer would decide, okay, that sounds good, plus shipping, whatever it is, and you're good to go. And that's the way you would use this feature. It's very simple. It doesn't make it super complicated. And then you would just confirm that as a sales order, and then off we go. Now, in this case, we're not going to lock that rate until it's specific, but that would be the quotation. If I immediately generated an invoice against that client whenever they place the order, that's when I would generate a locked conversion rate for Australian dollars against euros. So this is more like an estimate before moving forward. The rate gets locked whenever an invoice is generated for that client, or for example, I've gone ahead and marked it as packed. in case I haven't issued an invoice through Katana's platform. So this is how that feature comes into play and how it works. Now, if you're importing sales orders, that's different. It's a slightly different use case. So when the sales orders are imported from an outside e-commerce integration, which has already been paid, that's whenever those come in at an already fixed exchange rate based on the selling price of the website. So you might not be able to actually update the sales prices on your e-commerce website based on exchange rate risk, for example, but it's something to keep in mind. You might need to do that with a specific app for your website in order to reduce any exchange rate loss that could occur due to exchange rates. So yeah, that's an example of how to set a default currency for your customers, so that way you can sell in multiple currencies without losing any money.